First, thank you so much for this interview. More importantly, thank you so much for this incredible documentary. Of course, being shown just towards the end of Black History Month, but I think it's one of the most important must-see documentaries, whether it's Black History Month or any other month in the year. JM, I want to go right to immediately. For folks who don't know what this incredible documentary is about, what is it about, please, and where did the idea come from?
So the documentary is about rap lyrics being used against rap artists in courtroom. That's at first blush what it's about. But really, it's about a 300 or 400 year history of creative expression being used against Black folks over time that has culminated in this moment. And so it's a broader story. And what interested me was that most of the time when you see stories about this told in the news media, especially with the prominent Young Thug case in the headlines, the artist is always silent. So you only hear the perspective of district attorneys or prosecutors or lawyers or academics or news personalities. But the only person who we haven't heard from really is the artist. And so I wanted to tell the story from the artist's point of view.
Kemba, that's where we go to you, my friend. You're the narrator. You take us through this journey, and we get to speak to several different artists. How did you
Yeah.
feel about this? I mean, we all have this awareness. It's one thing when we have this awareness, is another thing when we get to put this to screen, when we get to see these words that we say used against us in the most brutal ways. Talk a little bit about that, please.
Yeah, I think that like you said, we all sort of have an awareness of it happening, but um speaking to people that it's actually happened to, um, hearing, I didn't know personally that, when I first thought of it, I thought it was sort of simple A to B. Like if this happened and you said this in your song, then they're gonna take you to trial for it, or they're gonna use it in trial. But learning that they sort of create a story of their own, like prosecutors can create a story of their own from a line from one song and a line from another song, and all of these sort of different practices that they use, super eye-opening to me. And then talking to people that it's happened to, that have sort of lost years of their life in prison, it was just it was super impactful for me as a person, and hopefully if people that see it sort of get that same impact.
I think we do. I know I definitely did. JM, how did you coordinate the artist? How did you pick the artist, or did you pick the artist? And also, I'd like the fact that I don't want to give too much away because I want people to walk into this. How you used history. When I say history, I'm not talking about the 1990s. I mean, you used history to explain more in what this story actually tells.
Right. So the first part, I selected the artists partly based on the artists who had actually had it happen to them. So, with Mac Phipps, for example, spending, doing 21 years on a 30-year sentence that was eventually thrown out, but not before it had subtracted 21 years from his life. To hear stories like that from a firsthand perspective from Mac and other artists was really important. But then also to hear just from artists from the spectrum, those who had kind of made it, those who were at the very beginning of their journey, who are just up and coming rappers right now encountering this, or dealing with the reality of what they're writing right now, what's putting money in the bank, putting food on the table, that might end up taking them out. Like that. That's how we chose the artist. And then it was a wealth of people who came to us and said, like, you have to hear our side of the story, especially in Chicago. Like, I was here at the Bertha drill. I was here, in the Robert Taylor homes. I lived there. I can tell you what was actually happening. That's how those people came forward, and that's why they got into the film. And then, yeah, as you were saying, like the very beginning of the process, I had read these Dutch slaver journals from the Middle Passage from the 1600s. And they said we could hear the slaves singing and we know they're communicating, but we don't know what they're talking about. That is exactly what's happening today in a different form, where people outside of the music are listening to it and they're not understanding what's happening inside of it, and they're using it for different purposes. So that's why we tell the history and go as far back, and hopefully people get a chance to watch it and see that full story, genre to genre, over time, that has led to what's happening right now with hip hop.
JM, I have to ask you another question too. Were you surprised in how this worked out because of what happened to our first artist that we're introduced to, knowing what happened at the
Yeah,
Grammys?
interesting. Yeah. Yeah, it was really interesting to see that play out. And yeah, we all know and love Killer Mike, to say his name, Killer Mike. He has been behind this issue for years and years and years previous to the doc. So we are all watching very closely to see what happens. But it's exactly that. When someone who you think is unassailable finds himself, you know, in a courtroom where the rules are completely different. It's not reality in there. It's something completely different. It's a theater of a different kind, or as Shakespeare said, you know, all the world's a stage. It's a different stage. So someone like Killer Mike being outside versus inside on that different stage where he's not allowed to speak, it really shows you how potent that room is. And it's a perfect example of why it's important that we talk about what we're talking about in the doc.
Kemba, one of the things that I found personally very interesting, and correct me if I'm wrong, when you went to the UK,
Yeah.
the cameras and how they were, can you talk a little bit about that, please? Because I was originally born in England, but I lived most of my life here in Canada. I could not imagine having that. I mean, to me, this is really about, when people use the term Big Brother, what you portrayed there is the exact definition of Big Brother and how Big Brother wants to use his information.
Yeah. In the UK, we just noticed that I think is it the most
Yeah,
Yes.
most
uh,
available.
the most surveilled city in the world, and they're literally everywhere. The cameras are everywhere, and the idea that at some point, I think it's been banned now, that those cameras are used to sort of put people that are in proximity to what they would deem as gang members, to put them in these sort of databases, and and how that sort of trickles down to like artists art being sort of banned from YouTube, and it's just wild to see. And we sort of learned on that trip as well that that's sort of like the prototype for what then goes on to be used in the US and elsewhere. And so it was really eye-opening to see.
We have to wrap this up, but last question, it goes for the both of you. Jam, I'll let you answer it first. What do you hope that fans will get from watching this amazing documentary?
I hope they see things differently. I hope they see the music differently. I hope they see the people who make the music differently. I hope they see the criminal justice system differently, in ways that push for change.
And you,
Yeah.
sir?
Yeah, same. I hope the conversation sort of tames or pulls the veil back on these preconceived notions that people have, that allows, you know, prosecutors to easily convince juries that, you know, these black and brown people are criminals.
Another journey in Black music and what it struggles in trying to get its message out there. And you two have put a perfect scenario together for us to witness and remind us about the beauty of our music and the danger at the same time. Gentlemen, thank you so much for this interview. All the best, and hope to talk to you both soon on different projects.
Thank you,
Thank
Rudy.
you, man.
Appreciate
Appreciate
it.
it.
Thank you.